If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy. Download and subscribe at BeBullish.com.
Wish you could become a morning person? You know the type, up before the sun, early morning runs, first one to the office with donuts and a smile. How do they do it? Easy. With the new Galaxy Watch 8, sleep tracking and personalized insights from Samsung Health help you improve so you can wake up to a whole new you. One who, dare I say it, skips the snooze? It's possible. Train your sleep with Galaxy Watch 8. Learn more at Samsung.com. Requires compatible Samsung Galaxy phone, Samsung Health app, and Samsung account.
Hello, Dick Morris.
Welcome to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. On the heels of his amazing success in defeating communism and forcing change in Russia, President George H.W. Bush, Bush 41, returned to the U.S. determined to ride his popularity into re-election. Didn't work out that way. The celebrations surrounding Bush's success abroad just underscored for Americans his lack of understanding about what they felt was the problems that we faced in the United States. And
Our economy, basically.
Our economy. And his failure to talk about them led to people believing that of the duality of their president being the hero of the world, while they had to suffer under his economic policies.
Understandable.
And that resentment began to pave the way for Bill Clinton's win in 92. That concept might take hold that, like Bush, Trump has lost touch with America and is so intent on reveling in his international triumphs that he's neglecting the economy at home.
First of all, he's not. Who wrote this, first of all?
Me.
You wrote this? Oh, my God, I was about to say. Who's the guy that wrote this thing?
His massive success in Gaza is not being matched by a similar amount of success at home. The Harvard-Harris survey of October 1st and 2nd reveals that only 34% of voters believe that their personal financial situation has improved in the Trump second term, compared to 43% that believe it's gotten worse. Americans note that his smashing success in trade deals is not showing up at their kitchen table. There are immediate steps Trump should and must take to reverse the growing bad feeling about the economy. He has enough money from his trade deals to do it. He solved the problem of military pay by ordering the Defense Department to find money even in the middle of a government shutdown, nor did he allow the Women's and Infants Feeding Program to close. Now he needs to take dramatic action to show that he can bring home the bacon to middle America. He should use his tariff revenues to fund a big immediate increase in Social Security COLAs, scheduled to rise by a measly 2.6%. And needs to demonstrate that his successes abroad have meaning for the average family. Trump should give a rebate of $2,000 per family from his trade deals to show that he gives the domestic economy priority over foreign adulation. He also should act on a campaign promise to take action to cap interest rates on credit cards at 10%. We can't let card companies profiteer off American families in distress by charging 15 or 20% or more. These steps would truly put America first.
So if he ties in what he did with the tariffs to this money, then it would be hard for people to say you just care about Europe or other places.
And I love Trump, as you know, but I'm worried about what he's doing now. I'm worried that he's so focused on foreign policy that he's not paying enough attention to the local economy.
But you mentioned to him the other day, I was there, when you told him about the $2,000 thing. And he said, yeah, that's good, because he was thinking about it also. And he's going to do it. I don't think he ever
I think he will
dismisses America. He just was busy with that. That's not done, but that's done in his mind for now. And he'll get to, especially if you stay on him.
Yeah. Well, this show was part of staying on.
I can see that. I didn't like in the beginning how you put that, but that's why I said who wrote this. You said you.
Now, the next story is a very, very important one. The Supreme Court is now leaning toward restricting the use of race in redistricting House congressional districts. Across more than 2 hours of arguments, the conservative majority raised alarm that states like Louisiana are going too far in intentionally drawing additional majority-minority districts to comply with the 1965 landmark civil rights law. It's a premise that poses major implications for Congress throughout the country. This is huge. If the court rules in favor of the plaintiffs in this case, we're not going to have these hung juries about Congress where 2 or 3 seats either way win the election. The Republican Party will pick up an estimated 19 seats as a result of this reapportionment.
How does this have to happen? Exactly how does this
There's a court decision now before the Supreme Court.
I know.
They just had the oral arguments. And if they rule in favor of the plaintiffs, the state legislatures are going to have to take all the districts that are currently represented by minorities and make sure there's a fair enough share of white voters in those districts so that they're not racially based. And that's going to make about 15, well, the estimate is 19 of those uncontested black Democratic seats.
So what are they going to? But what are they going to take the border of the district and move it over to where there's more white people? Is that how?
Yeah.
Is that how it's
Exactly.
done?
Well, it's originally
a physical. We move it over 10 miles.
Yeah,
because the area
it was originally
from
moved
Yonkers
10 miles
to South
the other
Yonkers.
way. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
And what they're saying is that was unconstitutional. You can't do that. In other words, since 1967, the courts have told the states, draw these lines in such a way that a minority is the only one who can win. And if all blacks...
Literally, that was that.
Literally said that.
Wow.
And if all blacks vote for the black candidate, we want him to be able to win.
Wow.
And they've complied with that. And as a result, we have 67 blacks in the U.S. Congress, all Democrats except one. And what the court is now saying is that is unconstitutional, that bias, even in favor of black seats, violates the Constitution.
Interesting.
And they're very serious about that. The justices are weighing whether race-based redistricting complies with the 14th Amendment, and they're increasingly concluding that they do not. Now, if that happens, it's very clear that the Democratic Party is going to lose a lot of seats. The reargument has thrown into question the court's decade-old voting precedents that have empowered minority groups to challenge maps across the country and force states to draw more majority-minority districts. Louisiana urged the court to have zero tolerance for any consideration of race in redistricting. The states...
You almost can't, because if you're redistricting, you have to know whether who's where.
You know it, but you can't
be
lines
zero
based on it.
Yeah, right.
You can't draw a line that looks like some kind of modern art creation just to make sure it's majority-minority district.
Yeah. I need a map to understand
And
this.
that could change Congress so significantly that it could assure a virtually permanent Republican majority in the House.
That idea.
It could be enormous. Now, that's along with the other changes that are going on for the 26th election, which is that Texas has redrawn its congressional districts, which normally happens every 10 years, but instead they're doing it in the middle of the decade.
Right.
And that will give Texas 5 more Republicans by taking districts that were basically fair and making them pro-Republican districts. And then the Republicans are retaliating in California. Democrats are retaliating in California by taking 5 seats that are definitely Democrat and making them potentially.
I think we're going to win this fight.
But then Trump came along and said, I want every legislature with Republican majorities to look at these lines in mid-decade and redraw them to make sure Republicans have a shot at winning. And that probably, if it works out, is going to result in 8 or 9 additional Republican seats.
Let me ask you, Texas, you said, right? They're the ones that started. It was a fair reason why they did it? Tell me why they did it.
Well, originally...
In other words, it wasn't some bias.
Originally, the blacks were stuffed into the districts.
Got it.
To make them Democrat.
Sure.
And what they're doing is basically readjusting that. I think, to be honest, fair is somewhere in between. Mm-hmm. But I think that as a partisan matter, the racial redistricting and the mid-decade redistricting are going to change politics in this country fundamentally. And the House of Representatives is no longer going to be a jump ball between the two parties. It'll be a reliable Republican majority. So the various state legislatures can redraw district lines in their state to gerrymander more seats for their party. But Republicans have control of more legislatures than do the Democrats, so they would gain in a partisan redistricting war. And the Louisiana versus Calais case challenges the use of race in drawing House districts. If the court throws out race-based districting, the Democrats could lose 19 seats.
Wow.
And if the Battle of the Maps comes to pass, they could lose a net of another 8 seats for a massive loss of 27 Democratic seats. And then we count the votes to see who actually won or lost the election. But before we get to counting the votes, the Republican Party is on the verge of seizing a 27-point extra vote margin in the House.
What are we right now? What was the balance?
3.
It was only 3?
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's been 1 or 2 or 3 for the last 5 years.
Right.
Now this might change.
Could be 20.
To be 27.
Wow.
First, because they're redistricting in the middle of the decade. And secondly, because they're going to eliminate race as a basis in drawing the districts. And those 2 steps alone will guarantee Trump a large majority in the House.
Wow.
So
they're going to sue, right?
Well, they've sued. This is in the courts.
Right.
This is after the courts have ruled. And it's huge. In fact, when you look at the Trump Supreme Court appointments that he made, people talk about the impact on repealing Roe. But, in fact, the biggest impact is this. Wow. It's going to make the House of Representatives possibly permanently Republican for a long period of time.
Wow, that's a beautiful thing. You want to talk about Putin?
Yeah. Now,
Putin's scared that Trump is going to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine. Putin is absolutely terrified of Ukraine getting Tomahawk missiles. It's not only their ability to hit targets deep in Russia, but the very fact that the USA and President Trump help Ukraine defeat Russia. That's what terrifies the Russian leader. Even though Putin is the dictator of Russia, his standing is conditional on popular support. He remembers what happened during the, how do you say that, Dick?
Prigozhin.
I have no whatever.
Uprising.
The Prigozhin's uprising in June of 23. Virtually nobody stood to support Putin. People were quietly cheering for that regime. Even his own top propagandist didn't jump to Putin's defense.
Now, the point of this story is that right now there is a scheduled meeting between Putin and Trump in Budapest, Hungary, in the next few weeks. And there are 2 moves that Trump is making to force Putin to agree to end the war in Ukraine. The first move is threatening to send Tomahawk missiles to Ukraine.
So the Russian people right there are looking at Trump saying Putin doesn't have is not comfortable anymore. Trump is not comfortable with Putin.
Yeah, but
so he lost.
But the more important thing here is that these missiles bring Moscow within range. Right. Ukraine could literally lob a bomb into the men's room of the Kremlin, and it puts it all within range. So that's a big, big deal. And the second thing is Trump is expanding the economic sanctions against Russia to tell countries like India, don't buy Russian oil, because if you do, we're going to impose sanctions against you.
And Putin's worried that the Russian people will react to that fact and to the destruction caused by the Tomahawks.
Yep.
So he's worried about
his
people.
These
as much as he's a dictator.
These negotiations coming up are under the gun of 2 important Trump initiatives, the Tomahawk missile and the changes that are going on.
You know, and Trump offered Putin a great deal, which included freezing of the war on the line of separation and maintaining Russian control over the occupied Ukraine territories. Putin refused. And now Trump is not just saying that he's unhappy, he's providing the next level of material to support Ukraine. It's a mighty blow to Putin's reputation as a master strategist. He fears the consequence, Putin does, and he fears the unknown.
Yep.
So that's that. You know, Trump, what he says, he does, and that's it. And so we're going to go to break now, Dick, and we're going to get back on, I don't know where we're coming back.
7. The feds have begun to arrest demonstrators who are trying to dox ICE agents.
It's horrible. And when we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
We're going to talk about doxing. The feds arrest demonstrators. Doxing is when these people publicize the name of ICE people, and put it on social media, the names, the address, and they call them for violence to be committed against them. That's what doxing is. You know
sometimes even they kid schools.
It's horrible. And they're following them home sometimes. You know, they see the ICE agents where they work.
Yep.
They follow.
And then in California, they passed a law saying the ICE agents can't wear masks.
Yeah, right.
So it makes doxing easier.
That's bull. And listen, Newscomb isn't following what he has to follow to help us with the federal government. So why should we listen to him about the mask? Okay, so individuals writing doxing and threatening U.S. immigration and custom enforcement officers and their families continue to be arrested and indicted. Thank God, Pam Bondi. Violence is largely occurring in the Democratic-controlled cities, including Los Angeles, and over the summer and more recently in Chicago, where rioters have thrown Molotov cocktails, rocks, and other projectiles and hit or blocked federal agents' vehicles with their cars. Others are attempting to identify ICE agents and their family members online, and what I just said, by publicizing their names and addresses on social media and calling for violence to be committed against them, known as doxing. Still others have followed ICE officers home, also doxed. This is horrible what they're doing. In one California case, 3 women were indicted by a federal grand jury for live streaming their pursuit of an ICE agent to his home and posting his home on Instagram. They are accused of using live stream accounts. I don't even want to say what they are. ICE out of LA, Defend Mesoamerican Culture. These are the accounts, right? Corn Maiden Design, whatever. And encouraging their viewers to share the live stream after arriving at the ICE agent's house. They shouted to bystanders saying, "Neighborhood is ICE. La Migra lives here, and ICE lives on your street." And you know, according to this is horrible what they're trying to do.
And thank goodness we're taking action against them.
But Newscomb wouldn't take action.
No.
That's why.
In fact, this is encouraged by California. And it's violence directed against ICE agents. And all they're doing is enforcing the law and doing their jobs.
Horrible.
Now, we all applauded like crazy, deservedly, when Trump pulled off the Middle East peace deal.
And he got 20 people, the last 20
hostages free.
Released.
Now the former Veterans Affairs Secretary, Robert Wilkie, says that Trump's leadership during the Middle East, during these negotiations, was because of Israelis' secret missile strike in Qatar. Qatar, as you know, is the country located right in the Emirates,
right,
which is very wealthy and which is supposedly an American ally.
Sometimes known as Qatar, right? Qatar.
But they're the home to large numbers of Hamas leaders who live comfortably there. Uh-huh. So Wilkie said that when Israel attacked Qatar, attacked those projects where the people live, the U.S. condemned it and Israel apologized. But he's saying this was all a charade. This was all a masquerade.
On whose side?
By both the U.S. and Israel. We pretended to protest, and they pretended to apologize. But the important fact was that the strike took place and that the Hamas leaders could have been killed. So they realized that once Netanyahu attacked Qatar, then that was going to be the unraveling. That President Trump would, when you know what Trump did, he told the Qataris, you see what our friends can do? You'd better stop the nonsense and get on board.
Right.
And they did. They told Hamas to get out and disarm, as well as the Saudis and some of the others.
Wow.
So basically he's saying that the whole charade of Israel saying, oh, I'm sorry, we attacked, we didn't really mean it. And then Trump saying you should apologize, and Israel apologizing was all BS. This was all designed to tell Hamas, you better settle this damn war, otherwise we're coming for you, even though you live in Qatar.
I have one question. Did it work?
Yeah.
There you go.
Worked beautifully.
That's all that matters. I don't care, what kind of position you want to take or if you acted not. It worked. Thank you. All right. Obama calls for opposition to Trump. This is unbelievable. Why don't he just go back to his new house in wherever he is, Martha's Vineyard or something? Barack Obama took aim at institutions and businesses who made deals or worked out settlements with the Trump administration, noting on a new podcast, we all have this capacity, I think, to take a stand. He added, we're not going to be bullied into saying that we could only hire people or promote people based on some criteria that's been cooked up by Steve Miller. But what about his DEI and all of that, hiring and firing people if you are or not? That didn't count.
Now, in New York State, they are considering legalizing euthanasia. And there's a bill before the legislature to do that. Mercy killings. And the big place that they've allowed these killings is Canada. And the evidence is piling up that Canadians with disabilities are disproportionately dying by medical assistance it's called MAID.
Medical assistant in dying. I'm just going to call it medical assist.
Medical assistance in dying.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the clinicians in charge of Vancouver Coastal Health Assisted Dying Team have told patients with chronic change that choosing assisted dying to avoid burdening loved ones can be considered an expression of love.
A little bit.
Yeah.
I can see it a little bit, sure.
I prefer Valentine. All this comes despite assurances from politicians and clinicians that the system has been carefully designed with stringent safeguards and that euthanasia and assisted suicide would not put Canadians at risk at living with vulnerabilities. Now a new Cardis report, which examined federal and provincial reports in Canada and peer-reviewed medical studies, shows that anecdotal evidence fits into a much larger pattern. Disability is a remarkably common characteristic among those being killed by MAID. In fact, from 2019 to 23, 42% of all Canadian MAID deaths, that is, assisted government deaths, involve people needing disability supports, including 1,000 who never received those supports. In Ontario in 23, people with disabilities were the most likely people to die via assisted suicide. Worse yet, in many cases, they were possibly getting assisted suicide even before they can access palliative care.
I don't understand. So
Canada voted to legalize assisted suicide.
Yeah.
And they said, we're going to make sure that nobody gets assisted suicide unless they're really dying and they really want it. And it now turns out...
That's a slippery slope.
It now turns out that a lot of people are getting killed under assisted suicide.
But they can't speak for themselves.
Can't speak for themselves, or
coma.
They're just totally disabled.
Wow.
And they're being killed. And
this is not good.
The study of MAID, M-A-I-D, that's the program, deaths, between 2016 and 19, concluded that 39% of those requesting MAID had a documented psychiatric condition, most commonly depression. Patients with a psychiatric condition were much more likely to request MAID than those without them. So, meanwhile, Canadian MAID providers report that almost half of the patients they helped die in 23 reported they were a burden, up 10% from the previous year. In the same year, more than 22% of patients suffered from loneliness, an annual a complaint that may have motivated their assisted suicide. So before we adopt assisted suicide laws in the United States, let's realize that in Canada they've not worked. There are many people being swept up in this who have disabilities or depressed or psychiatric conditions.
But who's making the decision? Here's my question. At the hospital, are there family members making the decision?
No.
Are the doctors?
These are doctors and healthcare providers who are making. Their family members have to approve.
Wow.
But
I don't know. This doesn't sound.
This becomes.
At first, I kind of liked the I said,
it becomes almost legalized murder.
Yeah, this doesn't sound.
When you take somebody who's very depressed or really disabled, and the consent isn't clear.
Or a mother or a grandmother says, "Oh, I'm a burden on my beautiful children. Take," you know what I mean?
Right.
That she doesn't mean it.
Right.
And I don't care if my mother's a burden on me. That's too bad.
That's right.
I'm gonna take care of her.
Exactly. So we need to bear that in mind when we consider an
So go back to the beginning. They approved
in New York,
I'm saying Canada, they approved this.
Yeah, it's law.
Yeah.
And then I was saying a lot of the people who got killed under assisted suicide didn't really want it.
Wow.
They were either disabled, they couldn't speak, they were mentally ill.
Wow.
All kinds of stuff.
Oh, it's not good.
Yeah.
Forget about this. Let God do his thing.
Now, Putin and Trump are going to be meeting soon about Ukraine. And Charles Lipson of the London Telegraph writes that Trump keeps saying that this joint U.S.-European effort can move Putin to the negotiating table. But that's not likely. He says Putin has staked his regime and his very life on victory in Ukraine. He says he can't stop now with so little to show for such a monumental sacrifice.
The only deal Putin would consider is one he could discard as soon as he had replenished his military. That pause, not a peace. That's a pause, not a peace.
NATO members understand the grim logic of deceit and will install troops in Ukraine as a tripwire if Putin reneges. The tripwire means that a Russian invasion would inevitably kill Western troops and draw NATO members into a war that Russia could not win. But knowing that he cannot pull off a deceitful pause and fearing for his life if he settles for a costly draw, Putin is very unlikely to end this costly war of choice. Trump may talk optimistically about negotiating with Putin, but the Russian dictator is more likely to lie on the Undertaker's table before he sits at the bargaining table.
Oh, not lie. Actually, lay down on the
Undertaker's table. So, and I don't know if he's right or not, but this is a well-regarded expert from London on Ukraine.
The key to Ukrainian success is steady progress taking out Russian oil refineries and logistics, less because of the strain that puts on the population and more because of the strain it puts on Putin's depleted army. And also with Trump, we have a story coming up where, what did we do it already, where Trump is telling people don't deal with Russia and for their economy.
We've mentioned that.
We have already.
Okay. We have time for one more? We
have time? Yeah, we have a couple of minutes.
Okay.
IRS to investigate sources of left money. Left-leaning groups that have been hiding in the shadows of friendly Internal Revenue Service may find them exposed to the cruel light of investigation, according to a new report. The report in the Wall Street Journal said that action taking shape with the IRS could be a prelude to criminal inquiries of left-leaning groups. The report, which relies heavily on sources did not name, said changes in that a source that was not named said changes in the criminal investigative division within the IRS could spawn investigations of left-wing money sources such as George Soros, which the Trump administration links to the violent unrest taking place in Democratic-led cities. At top IRS officials has put together a list of potential targets. The report named Gary Shapley, an advisor to Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, as the lead figure in the effort. Bessent is also the acting IRS commissioner. Shapley was one of the whistleblowers who appeared before Congress to allege that the investigation of Hunter Biden was heavily influenced by the Biden administration of politics, right? The Journal reported that Shapley seeks to replace Guy Fico, who currently heads the investigation unit, as Bessent carries out a directive from President Trump to find the financial networks underpinning Antifa and other groups that are causing anarchy in major cities.
So this is a new initiative by Trump saying we're going to investigate who's paying the money, who's funding these operations. And that's sending chills through the Democrats.
In an interview with Andrew Kovac, the Charlie Kirk show on Tuesday, Bessent said his work is much like the efforts to identify the financing of the 9/11 terror attacks. We have started to compile lists of other networks, and there's a long record here, Bessent said. This is a mission critical for us now. We are operationalizing this here at the Treasury. We are going to track down who is responsible for this, he said, referring to the upsurge in left-wing political violence, including Kirk's assassination.
Yep.
So this is key.
Go on to the next story because the No Kings protest just happened.
Oh, but we have to break right now. When we come back, we're going to talk about no kings, really.
Yeah. No kings meant no president under Biden,
yeah.
And it means no cops under Mamdani.
Yeah. When we get back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Dick Morris, Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group. Doug, last Saturday, yesterday, there were protests by the left against about no kings, they call it. How did those go?
Yeah. First of all, they do the no kings thing, right? What about the coronation of Kakala with to the Kakala girl, the mandatory mask, closed churches where they left liquor stores open, but they closed churches. No, then they fired people that had no vaccine, right? Allowing violence. Listen, the king, right? So let me talk about this. This coming Saturday, which is yesterday, right? October 18th. The No Kings movement returns to the streets on paper, a nationwide nonviolent day of action rejecting authoritarian overreach. In practice, the most ambitious attempt yet to fuse the left's disparate agendas, labor, democracy, cultural justice, anti-authoritarianism, into one unidentified show of force.
Unified.
So, if you thought this was just a protest around a few policies, think again. The money, the messaging, the institutional muscle reveal an agenda far broader and more coordinated than the small donor democracy movement lines, right? Once again, Soros money, who's doing this, right? Indivisible is deeply embedded in the No Kings architecture. Its brand infrastructure and local chapters they have now form the skeleton of mobilization. The NoKings.org hub presents training partners, lists, and an unifying brand. No thrones, no crowns, no kings.
And under Biden, no presidents.
That glues together the swath of the left-aligned organizations. Coalition partners named publicly include ACLU, Human Rights Campaign, Americans United, and others, each lending their networks legitimacy and donor base to the same umbrella. By the way, let me tell you something. I infiltrated this organization, and they were doing like a prep protest, how they tell them what to say, and I think Peter Griffin was the head of it. Do we have that?
What do we want?
We don't know.
When do we want it?
Also unclear.
Why do we want it?
Because it was forwarded to us in an email, so it must be true.
Yeah!
I was there. I infiltrated.
That was very good of you, Doug. You really took a risk there.
Oh, by the way, the other day, last week, was the same type of thing. I don't know if they called it No Kings. I think it was there early on, with a dress rehearsal last week. So I had my Trump vest on, right? And I'm hanging out in front of the Trump Tower, and I talk to the Secret Service and the police. And I go, what's going on? I go, big protest. I said, frig them. I was going to Cipriani's or somewhere, right? I turn around, I come back, I walk right through the line of all of the protesters. And I got I made sure, you could see the Trump vest. Not one of them bothered me. It's pretty funny. I mean, I had the Secret Service and the cops across the street watching me.
Don't you know about divestment? Take your vest off when you would demonstrate.
I swear, I don't care. You better be some badass dudes coming at me. You know what I mean? I should care, but I don't.
The next story is very important for the New Jersey governor's race. And we're going to have Jack Ciattarelli on in a few minutes.
He's coming on a little after 1.
And the last time there were governor races off year in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin won the election, the Republican, because he got into a tiff with Terry McAuliffe, the Democratic ex-governor.
Sure.
And McAuliffe said parents have no business interfering with schools. Leave it to the professionals, and parents should have no business in that.
I remember the day he said that. I almost fell over.
Now the Supreme Court on October 14th turned away a petition from parents whose children were secretly given gender identity instruction.
Turned away?
Bad ruling.
Whoa.
The justices declined to grant a writ of certiorari filed by the parents of middle school students in Colorado.
Wow.
Justice Alito, joined by Thomas and Gorsuch, said the question is whether a school district violates the fundamental rights of parents when, without parental knowledge or consent, it encourages the student to transition to a new gender or assists in that process.
Didn't the school violate?
Yep, it did, but the court ruled wrong.
I can't get that. I don't understand.
Gorsuch wrote, petitioners tell us that nearly 6,000 public schools have policies, as respondent allegedly does, that purposefully interfere with parents' access to critical information about their children's gender identity choices and school personnel's involvement in and influence on these choices.
I don't know what that means. It doesn't matter. Don't explain it.
This troubling and tragic allegations in this case underscore the great and growing national importance of the question that these parent petitioners present. The case in question involves 2 students who went to Gender and Sexualities Alliance meetings that discussed gender identity and featured warnings about divulging the discussions with their parents. The parents of the students who attended middle school in Colorado sued, alleging that district policies infringed on their rights as parents.
Yeah.
One such policy directs school employees not to disclose information that may reveal a student's transgender and non-binary status to others, including parents.
God.
As in many schools across America, respondent has implemented a series of policies that usurp parental authority in favor of schools' authority, effectively denying parents the right to care, custody, and control of their own children. Lower courts rejected the case, finding that the parents had not established liability for school officials. But these rulings invite respondent to continue surreptitiously wresting decision-making authority from fit parents, unawares, and indeed vesting that authority in school parents, the parents stated. So this case is going the wrong way, and the Supreme Court so far has refused to hear it.
This is where I could see more parents are going to do the homeschooling thing. You know what I mean?
Well,
why would you send your kids out to school? Jack comes home at Jill, as you say, right? Yeah. But why would you do that? Like, you've got to worry about...
You're right. There's a big impact on homeschooling, but it is a terrible, terrible decision. And it wasn't publicized because...
Wait, they made the decision they're not looking into the case.
They're not taking the case.
They're not taking the case.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Can it go back to them or no? Once they rule on not taking the case, is that
it?
They
could reconsider. But
it's
not very likely. This is probably something now that has to be challenged in separate lawsuits.
Because the Supreme Court didn't take it, so there's no precedent of Supreme Court. So now each state or whatever district Wow.
Yeah.
I find it kind of odd that they didn't take it. It sounds it's
terrible.
Terrible. No, but it sounds just common sense that I'm a parent and I don't want some teacher or some whatever in the school district saying, don't tell your parents that you have a problem. It just doesn't. I'm so surprised at the court.
The UN is trying to impose a carbon tax on America. And Trump just got an injunction stopping it. A last-ditch effort to block an international carbon tax on the shipping industry. The background of this is that the environmentalists at the UN have been working very hard at trying to get taxes against pollution. And by taxing carbon, taxing going onto ships and saying what percentage of your cargo is carbon, we'll impose a tax on you based on that. They're hoping that they can get this through without the approval of the United States Congress.
Here's what they said. The organization could attempt to saddle ships with taxes ranging from $100 to $380 per metric ton of carbon dioxide that exceeds a certain emission level. Once again, who's doing the counting here?
Well, this would be the UN.
Right.
In other words, the UN is saying that if you're shipping a cargo on the high seas, we can inspect it and we can tell you we can see what percent of the carbon is in this shipment.
Right, got
and
it.
we can tax you based on
Wow.
it. And Trump objected to it, and it was passed over Trump's objection. Now Trump had forced a reconsideration of it, and it looks like the tax will not be imposed. But
no taxation without representation.
Yeah, exactly.
That's basically what it is.
Exactly.
Ron DeSantis said in Florida.
And he said being taxed by the UN would be far more offensive than being taxed by the King of England 250 years ago.
That's amazing. We got to take a break. When we get back, we're going to talk about what early we just touched on about India to stop buying Russian oil.
No. The first thing we'll talk about is Venezuelan drug convoys being intercepted by the U.S. troops on land, not just on water.
Of course, did you hear what Trump said in the thing? I can't say the word. Do you have the beep button ready? No, I'm not going to say it. Somebody said to him, they said, Mr. President, Maduro's going to give you this, going to give you that. He goes, he's going to give me everything. You know why? He doesn't want to F with the United States of America. And he said it at the press briefing. It was great. All right, when we come back.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Everything in his country, all the natural resources. He even recorded a message to you in English recently, offering mediation. What should we do in order to stop that?
He has offered everything. He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
You know what that reminds me of? This is the Dick Morris, Doug DePiero Show, sponsored by
the Patriot Gold Group.
You know what that reminds me of? The story, I don't know if it was a senator, I don't forget who told the story, so it was real. He said he was at a big imam's, a meeting somewhere with an imam that was a terrorist. And he said, by the way, I don't want you messing with us. If one guy gets hurt, one American, especially a service person gets hurt, this and that, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to take you out. Then he gets up, he hands him a picture of the guy, like eating dinner, some odd picture that no one could have, right? Hands him a picture, and the guy goes, where'd you get this picture? And he just got up and walked out. He didn't say, my people, I'm in America. He just got up and walked out.
Yeah.
And that's a true story.
Wow.
Where'd you get this picture of me and my family?
Well, this was all because the U.S., as you know, has been blowing up and sinking drug shipments coming in from Venezuela. And
there's been drugs floating to the shore, and Hunter Biden's been swimming out there all day long.
and the international, the countries are objecting, saying that this is neutral shipping lanes and all that.
So Trump suggested to the United States recent strikes on drug traffickers in Venezuela waters will now also be coordinated within its borders. The Department of War had been striking alleged drug trafficking boats within Venezuela's vicinity, despite the country's opposition to such activity. Of course, they're going to lose money. Trump told reporters that the U.S. is certainly looking at land strikes in Venezuela because we've got the sea under control, and now we got to deal with the land. He noted the Navy stopped drugs from coming from the sea, but we're going to stop them by land also. By land or sea? How does that thing go?
One by land.
One by land, something by aid.
There is a massive shift in the global economy going on with the increasing investment in artificial intelligence. AI, artificial intelligence, requires huge amounts of electricity, vast amounts of computer time, and that in turn requires important new investments in the electric grid. Because the U.S. is dominant in this growth, these trends are powering the boom in investments throughout the U.S. economy. And the boom is impacting all across the board. The Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ have all reached record heights because of the need to invest money to create electric capacity for industrial artificial intelligence.
And we need gold for that.
Well, gold has been soaring in part because of this.
So buy Patriot Gold.
Well, we can't say that unless it's part of the ad. Yeah. Now, Los Angeles declared a state of emergency, not because of crime, not because of anything, but because of ICE. The Los Angeles County officials declared a state of emergency. County officials declared a state of emergency Tuesday in response to ICE raids across the region. The declaration, approved 4-1 vote of the County Board of Supervisors, authorizes the use of emergency funds to support residents affected by ICE operations. The order allows for rent relief, legal aid, and other assistance for individuals who ICE is chasing. The move comes amid a broad federal crackdown on illegal immigration. Federal agents have carried out operations throughout L.A. County in recent weeks, arresting more than 5,000 people since late August. So the L.A. City Council has responded to this, not by telling people to turn themselves in, not by saying we should crack down on these illegal immigrants, not by thanking Washington for doing it, but passing a law saying we're going to stop this and allocating aid to the people who are being affected by this.
That's called aid and abetting, isn't it?
It is. So if an ICE agent is after you, you can get money from Los Angeles city government to evade him.
How about the ice cream man? I used to run after him. You know, the good humor guy? Ding, da ding, da ding. They had the poll. So listen, before we get Jack on, Sandra, we got to get Sandra on right now. Could we get Sandra from New Jersey? She wants to talk about Jack. Good news. Hi, Sandra.
Hi, thank you so much. You know, I learned this week that the North Bergen Democratic Mayor, Dick Sacco, former state senator, endorsed Jack Ciattarelli at the annual Mayor's Ball. To me, this is huge. He is responsible for over 70,000 people, and time after time...
Is he in office now?
Yes, he's now the Democratic mayor of North Bergen, and he endorsed Jack Ciattarelli. This is wonderful.
Great. That is incredible.
I mean, and every year they keep asking for critical funding. They're never getting it. And Jack said he will definitely help this man, mayor in North Bergen. I'm so excited. I can't tell you.
Ciattarelli is coming on strong and will, I think, very possibly win. There's a poll out that just shows them 3 points apart. And he lost by 3 last time. And I think he may well close it up this time.
Now, and he's coming on about 120, Sandra, so keep your eyes peeled.
Now, across the border in New York, we are not that lucky when we have Mandami running for mayor because he's ahead. And Betsy McCoy, the former lieutenant governor of New York, warns that the mayor of New York has tremendous powers to appoint judges for 10-year terms. It can be a mayor's most lasting legacy, exerting influence far beyond his term.
Well, I got something to say, but she wrote one part that's very important to me. 2 men allegedly stole a Dodge Charger muscle car last month and led cops on a wild chase through the Bronx, driving up. She's basically talking about the crime right now. But hold on. No way, a muscle car? Now you got my attention. Don't be stealing some muscle cars. When the officers finally grabbed these guys, they had loaded, unlicensed pistols in his waistband. Here's the punchline. Hauled before the Bronx criminal court judge, both were back on the street within hours, paying no bail. The cops clearly risked their lives dearly, and judge's decision shows a total disregard for the bravery. Too many of the city's lower courts are ideologically opposed to locking up alleged offenders before the trial and requiring the bail. I mean, what the...
Mandami is against jail, and he's saying that jail has no purpose, and that the pro-crime industrial complex is elated at the prospect of his victory.
We're gonna go to a break. We got a hard break. We'll come back and finish up on this because Jack's not coming on till 1:20. Thank you.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
So let's just get back to this Betsy's article. Mandami is intensively anti-incarceration at times, questioning if jails have any purpose at all, and the pro-crime industrial complex is elated at the prospect of his victory. Legal aid and society lawyer Susan Elizabeth Light represented one of the two accused Dodge Charger thieves, who I'm going to get them. Mandami has made a lot of promises, she told me, including more bail reform and social workers with cops.
You know, when you're in prison or when you're released, you're very often on parole, and you have to see your parole officer every couple of weeks. And if you don't, if you miss a session, you can be rearrested and put back in jail for the balance of your term. If you're caught with drugs or committing a crime while you're on parole, you can go back to jail again. Mandami has said he wants to change that law and say you're allowed 2 mistakes before we'll put you back in jail. In other words, you're allowed to screw up twice, 2 strikes, and you're in. And only after the third time can you be reincarcerated. This has done real damage. The pretrial prison population of New York has fallen by 40% over 2 years. 40% fewer people being prosecuted for crimes, while major crimes rose by 37%. So Mandami wants to close Rikers Island, stop pretrial detention, and let them out. And that has resulted in a 40% increase in crime. You know, as Slee was campaigning, he's doing a good job of framing Mandami as for what he is, which is a far left extremist. But I think he needs to slow down here and focus on the fact that in 2022, Mandami co-sponsored the Less is More Act, which exempt parolees from having to return to prison the first 2 times they get in trouble with the law. As a result, 85% of parole violators stay free after reoffending. So why is our crime going up? It's going up because we're letting them stay out on the street. And New York is considering electing a mayor that does not believe in jail, does not believe that they should go back to jail.
Let me tell you something. Curtis will absolutely be the guy to take care of all this. He's been on the street from the very beginning, and we got On the Rocks coming right before Curtis comes on, and it was great what she was talking about with, Guardian Angels and what he was doing before. But Curtis, by the way, is coming on at about 1:35, 1:40. I just got a text from him, so he's on. He's absolutely the strongest guy for this thing. Mandami wants the opposite. Mankami, I'm calling him, wants the opposite.
He literally is opposed to jail.
Literally opposed to. How could that be?
I mean, what he?
I love to see his kids running around the house. What they do.
He's not against putting them in jail, but he's basically putting us in jail.
Pretty much,
because we're the ones being disciplined.
Yeah, right. We're the ones that are going to get hurt and whatever. This is horrible. So anyway, Curtis is the guy. He was great at that debate. You know, he speaks like a street guy, straight to the point, and he's definitely, he knows what he's talking about. And that's the other thing. I've turned a lot of people just having conversation. Oh, he's not going to win. He's not going to win. I go, don't say he's not going to win. Mandami, he might have some poll number that looks good for him, but just like Trump in 2016, and I said this back then, I go, people get on the poll and they get on the phone and they go, oh, I'm not voting for Trump, and they're probably saying, oh, yeah, I'm definitely voting for Mandami, and then when they get there, they change their mind. They're just saying that in front of their friends, when they're on the phone with people, and then they're embarrassed to say they're going to vote Republican, they're going to vote for Kurt. No one's voting for Cuomo. I mean, Cuomo just looked like the big liar that he is, and he's trying to backtrack on all the stuff he did. Curtis went at Mandami with the Christopher Columbus. You gave the finger to Christopher Columbus. It was great. I got to tell you, Curtis is going to win. Everyone, you got to stop saying, "Oh, he can't win." He is absolutely can win, and he's going to win.
And there's a new development. Mandami is facing renewed criticism after sharing a photo from a recent visit to a Brooklyn mosque where he met with an imam who is described as a co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. After the campaign event, which was framed as an outreach visit to the Muslim community, the post quickly became the object of public scrutiny once details about Wahhabi's background resurfaced. According to federal court records and historical reporting, Wahhabi, who Mandami just appeared with, was named an unindicted co-conspirator in the 1993 World Trade Center bombing. So Mandami was just accepted the endorsement from a guy who was an unindicted co-conspirator in the 93 bombing. The attack, which killed 6 people and injured more than 1,000, was the first major terror assault on American soil by Islamist extremists. Wahhabi, whatever his name is, also testified in defense of Omar Abdel Rahman, the blind sheik who was later convicted of masterminding that bombing.
I remember that guy.
Wahhabi was named by U.S. Attorney Mary Jo White as an unindicted person who may be alleged as a co-conspirator in the bombing. Mandami's statements of Wahhabi's public statements of long-drawn criticism from counter-terrorist experts. He's previously stated that Islam is better than democracy and predicted that in time democracy will crumble. In multiple sermons throughout the 90s, Wahhabi...
Where is this guy?
Brooklyn.
Ooh.
In 1990s, Wahham advocated for the implementation of Sharia law, expressed disdain for Western democratic systems.
And this is the guy Mandami is buttoned
just
up
appeared with.
Yeah.
During a 91 sermon, Wahai, it's Wahhij.
I don't even worry about it. Wawa.
Reportedly
Just call
said,
Wawa.
Quote, those who struggle for Allah, it doesn't matter what kinds of weapons you use. If you have faith in Allah and have a knife, if Allah wants you to win, you will win.
Oh, that's nice, isn't it?
Because Allah is the only one who fights. And because his hand is over your hand, whoever is at war against my friend, I declare war on them. The Americans are not our friends. The Canadians are not
get out.
Your friends. The Europeans are not your friends.
And get the frig out.
According to public records, several individuals affiliated with his Brooklyn mosque were later convicted for providing material support to terrorists. Wahai himself was publicly accused the FBI and CIA's wrongdoing, saying they are the real terrorists.
Where are our protesters that go after that guy in Brooklyn? I want to see some of our protesters go and talk to that guy.
Well, let's instead...
And when I say talk, I say, give him a nice
Let's
talking
instead
to.
defeat Mamdani.
Yeah, right.
Which is what he really fears the most.
That's why Curtis has to win this thing. Has to, 100%.
Now, there's been a big change going on in China. The Chinese leadership has expelled 9 high-ranking military leaders.
In a dramatic move on October 17, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, expelled 9 high-ranking military leaders and handed them over for investigations on accusations related to corruption and abuse of power, including a top general considered to be close ally of Xi Jinping. Or another name I'm not going to get, Wei Dong, a member of the whatever Politburo, the CCP's second highest decision-making body, and vice chairman of the Central Military Commission, CMC, which exercises CCP's control over the armed forces, was stripped of his party membership and taken down from the People's Liberation Army, according to the spokesperson for China's Defense Ministry. An announcement makes he the most prominent military figure brought down in the CCP's decade-long campaign against so-called corruption. The latest purge have increasingly targeted Xi Jinping's proteges and longtime associates, sparking speculation about power struggles behind the scenes. Interesting.
Now you can pronounce all these names. Go to the EV story.
Yeah, this I could pronounce. Half these things, we got to put with a phonetic spelling so we can understand. Even that I couldn't do. In Canada, Prime Minister Mark Carney, that I know, paused an electric vehicle sales mandate due to kick in the next year. In Great Britain, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has weakened his government's timetable for the adoption of the EVs. The European Union is on the verge of rolling back its 2035 target for eliminating carbon dioxide emissions. No kidding. What have I been saying for 2 years, right? Automakers have been saying that consumers aren't adopting EVs as quickly as expected, and government efforts to proliferate the technology are hammering their bottom lines, explains the Wall Street Journal. In quotes, an expert at the consulting firm McKinsey has concluded that EVs aren't smartphones. They're not. Listen, it's not going to happen. And until these manufacturers come up with something that they're going to make money with and something that's going to really work, gas motors are going to be going.
You've been saying this for several years now, and it's becoming increasingly true.
But I do see, I've been watching, and I don't want to talk about any of that because I don't know where they're going. There's a lot of different manufacturers and smart guys, inventors that are putting motors together that are working, whether it's on water, not on water, they're not boats. Their combustion is running with water, and then they have other variations. It's getting close. It's getting very close to where we're going to have these, not hybrid motors, these different type of combustion motors. And I don't know if some of them aren't even combustion. Anyway, where are we going?
One of the, in the wake of the Gaza settlement, there is an increasing possibility that Saudi Arabia will join the Abraham Accords with the Trump administration. The looming prospect of Saudi Arabia joining the Abraham Accords, partnering with Israel, creating a regional alliance and isolated both the terrorists and Iran, is looming. In the months leading up to the attacks, Saudis had repeatedly hinted they were about to conclude a deal with Israel. They had already encouraged their smaller allies to join the accords. But the Islamist regime in Tehran knew that killing 1,200 Israelis in an unprovoked attack would ensure military retaliation and stop Saudi Arabia from joining the Abraham Accords. And the experts are now saying that the fact that Saudi Arabia is tending toward basically becoming America's and Israel's ally was responsible for the attacks on October 7th because the Hamas people knew that this would screw up the plans. Okay, we have to go to a break.
So let's go to a break, and when we come back, we got Jack Cilarelli. All right, Well, when we get back, Jack. Get back, Jack.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show.
Dick, we have the next governor of New Jersey on the line right now.
Jack Ciattarelli.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
Guys, great to be back with you.
Thank you.
Boy, it is incredible progress you're making. I gather you just got a huge endorsement in Bergen County.
Sandra was telling us.
And told us about it.
A mayor? What do you got,
Jack? There's great energy all across the state, guys, and particularly minority communities. The reception has been very, very positive. And also all these endorsements from Democratic mayors, including last week up in Hudson County, North Bergen. It was Mayor Sacco. So I'm honored to have his endorsement.
Beautiful.
Why are all these Democratic mayors endorsing you?
They've had it with Phil Murphy's failed policies, Dick. It's been a failure across the board. Taxes, spending, public safety, public education, housing, overdevelopment in our suburban communities. And so when Democratic mayors are endorsing you, it tells you how much these policies have failed us.
Right.
And they're just afraid that Mikey Sherrill is going to be Murphy 2.0.
Now, there's a looming deadline about federal education aid where Congress in the Big Beautiful Bill passed a rule saying that people could get a tax credit of $7,500 apiece for money that they pay to voucher schools. That is pro-choice schools, church schools, charter schools, private schools. And you could get $7,500 that the feds would pay for your tuition if you send your kid there. But it's up to each state to decide whether to participate or not. And if the state says they're not participating, the money doesn't go to the state. It just stays with the federal treasury. But if the state says, yeah, we want to participate, you get the money. And the governor is going to say no unless it's you.
Listen, my opponent is owned by the teachers union, which means she's not going to opt into that. I'm an educational choice guy. We need vouchers like we've seen with success in Arizona, Ohio, and Florida. We need charter schools, and we're going to opt into this program when we win this race and give people the tax credit they deserve, particularly considering all the property taxes they pay here in New Jersey. And that's particularly acute when they're not sending their kids to the public school system.
Right.
How my opponent could not opt into that, I don't understand. But then again, she is owned by the teachers union, and they don't want anything to do with school choice.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, earlier in the show, I commented on a decision that the Supreme Court's made that I really don't agree with, which is they've refused to hear a case of some parents in Colorado whose children in public school were secretly transitioned to be gay, indoctrinated to be gay, and the parents were not told about it, and the school officials were warned that they could not tell the parents about it on pain of being fired. And this came up as a case, and the Supreme Court should have accepted that case, but did not. And I think that's terrible. Gorsuch said, petitioners tell us that 6,000 public schools have policies that purposefully interfere with parents' access to information about their children's gender identity choices. So if you're governor of New Jersey, what are you going to do about this?
Dick, I share your disappointment. Here in New Jersey, that policy is called Policy 5756, where school districts are keeping secrets from parents. It's immoral, it's indecent, it's wrong. I believe it's dangerous. It was never codified by the legislature. That's the good news. When I win, I could reverse it on day one.
Good.
And so no longer will we have Policy 5756. My opponent supports it. We shouldn't be keeping secrets from parents. And something else my opponent supports is biological boys participating in girls' sports. We're not going to have that in New Jersey either.
Good for you,
Right.
Jack. Good.
We're also not going to have outrageous taxes.
Listen, we want an inclusive environment where everyone feels welcome, but more than anything, we also want a fair environment. Right. There's nothing fair about biological boys participating in girls' sports, and there's nothing right about parents being kept in the dark with regard to their parents. Our kids are best served when school districts and parents work in partnership, not in secret.
I said earlier that if they're going to do this, people are going to look to homeschool their kids. If you got to worry about sending your kid to school and
you send Jack to school and Jill will come home.
Yeah, people homeschool their kids.
Doug, what's so interesting about what you're saying is there's 80,000 kids in New Jersey that are homeschooled.
Wow.
For some of the very reasons we're talking about right now. And the Democrats have just introduced a bill that makes it harder for you to homeschool your kid. And if you get the approval, you have to build things into the homeschool curriculum that are the very reasons you left the public school to begin with.
Oh, my God.
I would never sign that bill. And if we can win a majority this year, and we've got an outside shot, we really do, we won't have to worry about that bill. But if it comes to my desk, I'll veto it within seconds.
That's so important, right there.
Yeah, and speaking about the tax credit, those 80,000 homeschool children could be getting $7,500 each from the federal government.
You mean when you homeschool, you get
a tax
subsidy?
credit.
Wow!
But the state is vetoing
tax credit.
That. But the state is vetoing that.
So where would you go with that, Jack?
Participating in the program.
Well, again, guys, we're going to opt in and get people the maximum tax credits that they deserve when you're paying all those property taxes and not paying the public schools.
Right.
But again, this comes down to my opponent being owned by a very powerful special interest. I will tell you that 1 out of 3, if not 1 out of 2 teachers is voting for me this year because they know these policies are wrong. But the point I'm trying to make, and we saw this with the current governor, and you see it with my opponent, once you're owned by these powerful special interests, you're compromised.
That's it.
And once you're compromised, you are not going to be making decisions on behalf of taxpayers.
Yeah,
You're just not.
Al Shanker, the head of the New York Teachers Union, was asked about that, and he said, when kids start to pay union dues, I'll act in the interest of the kids.
Oh, God.
Right. And, guys, I make the point all the time that ever since the Janus decision came down from the federal Supreme Court, teachers do not have to pay the union dues that goes towards political activities. They can save themselves $1,600 a year. I think it's sneaky that the union only lets them out once a year in the summer months. If you're paying union dues every single month, I think you should be allowed to opt out any single month.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I think you're going to win, Jack.
I think
you're coming on very, very strong. And this is
We're
the
right
time
there,
to do
guys.
it.
And you got the
We're
unions
right
in your, at your back? You got the unions helping you out also?
No, hurting them.
I thought you just
We
said...
have a number of unions helping us out.
Yeah,
I've been endorsed by the State Troopers, the Retired State Troopers Association, the New Jersey Retired Police and Firemen Association, the FOP, operating engineers, bricklayers. We've got it all. And it's all because people know we need change here in New Jersey. And what we really need is somebody who's from New Jersey, a hands-on CEO governor. That's exactly what I'll be.
Oh, that's great, Jack.
Well, good luck, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yeah, looking forward to coming back on, guys.
Absolutely.
Well, we'll have you on when you're governor.
Yeah. We'll be
Good.
calling you
Great. Thank
Governor
you.
Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Bye. Okay. All right, Dick, where
Okay.
are we now?
So,
I got something from Roxana that said, how could we expect, this is about the No Kings, how could we expect a group of people who don't know the difference between a man and a woman to know the difference between a king and a president? I don't know where she got that from, but it's pretty good.
right.
So
That is good.
And soon we're gonna have Curtis coming on. Not yet. He'd be calling in a couple of minutes. And so, what are we talking about there, Dick Morris? What do we got?
Well, we were just talking briefly about the United Nations wanting to impose a tax on American citizens. The Trump administration forced the International Maritime Organization, a UN group, to delay voting on whether to adopt the measure known as the Net Zero Framework.
Right.
And the Net Zero Framework meant that boats that contain cargo, international ships on the high seas, could be inspected by the UN. And if the cargoes were deemed to be encouraging the use of carbon,
Yeah, right.
they could be subject to a tax. But it marks the first time that there's been an effort to impose what amounts to a global tax on carbon emissions, which the Wall Street Journal said is the ultimate in taxation without representation.
Right. And it was like per metric ton. They range from $100 to $380
Despite
per
lacking
metric ton.
both sovereign authority and enforcement power, the UN's London-based International Maritime Organization could attempt to settle ships with taxes ranging from $100 to $380 per metric ton of carbon dioxide that exceeds a certain emissions level. Shockingly, the Wall Street Journal called this the first instance we can find of the UN claiming authority to levy a tax, the revenues which would be paid directly into the UN fund, into a UN-controlled fund. Yeah, needless to say, a power grab of this nature awakens American patriots to the perils that beset our ancestors. No taxation without representation, Ron DeSantis wrote Tuesday on his social media platform. Being taxed by the UN would be far more offensive than being taxed by the King of England, as American colonies figured out 250 years ago. Those taxes sparked the American Revolution, and we are stopping these taxes from taking place here.
So let's go to the phone stick. You ready?
Yep.
We got Tom from Yonkers talking about the mayor's race. Hey, Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you now.
It's Buddha. How you doing, my
Hey,
friend?
Tommy Buddha. This guy, let me tell you about Tom Dudley over here. What a singer. He plays out all the time. Good friend of mine from Yonkers. One of my Irish friend. He's like an Italian. And as a matter of fact, you know, he plays big. And we always have this thing. We haven't done it yet. And I would say to him, when he's on stage, we haven't done it, but we're going to do it someday. Hey, you up on stage. You know who I am? You know who I know? And he goes, what? I go, do you know who I am? Do you know who I know? And he goes, Dougie DePiro. I go, yeah, how do you spell that? What's up, Tommy? How are you?
I'm grateful that I got to come on because I love this show and I've been listening to Dick Morris for a long time. And then when I found out you were with him, you were my neighbor for years.
Forget about it.
I said, forget about it.
Yeah.
But the greatest thing about listening to the show is I always feel like I get the best information from Dick.
Yeah, he's amazing.
And it's just amazing how on target he is. And, I'm really disappointed with WABC Radio because they've kind of turned the tide in some ways going against Curtis. And, they're saying, we got to, the lesser of two evils, the devil you know.
And that's with them sponsoring Curtis and having him on the air for an hour every week.
I know.
And it blows my mind because anybody who knows Curtis knows he's not backing down.
He's not backing down.
That's right.
Anybody who knows Curtis knows he can't stand Andrew Cuomo. He can't stand him, right? So it's just impossible to think that he would step aside, number one, for him, because he's the only ethical choice that we have.
Yep.
He is
the only
great.
ethical choice.
I agree with that.
He's going to be.
Madame, you take Cuomo, they're not ethical.
He's going to be a
Cuomo
Rudy
killed
Giuliani.
6,000 people by making them go into nursing homes when they had COVID.
Yeah, right. And they had the ship on the Hudson and Jacob Javits Center open, and he put people back in the nursing homes.
Do you have time for another call?
So, thanks, Tom. You got anything else?
You.
We're good, right?
No, man, I'm glad that I got to say hello, and it's Buddha time. Thank you.
Buddha time.
Thank you.
So, we have a couple of minutes. Curtis is coming on soon, but we have Roxana on, and she's got a whole New York thing going on, the feel for the mayor's race in New York. What was this? Hold on, Roxana.
Hi, Dick. Hi, Doug.
All right. Give it 1 second, Rock. Don't we have some music? All right. So what do you got, honey?
Well, this is On the Rocks, and with the mayor election upon us, I felt deeply that this segment should be a reminder of what New York City represents. Not just to the world, but to those who choose to call it their home. There's a lot at stake. There's no gray areas for New Yorkers. They embrace the city as their own. It's personal, passionate, protective. So, what is the New York state of mind? There's been some great quotes about this beautiful, unique city. Truman Capote quoted in 1958, "It's not just a city, it's a world." To quote novelist Tom Wolfe, "One belongs to New York instantly. One belongs to it as much in 5 minutes as in 5 years." Yes, I agree it's a world of its own. New York has always had the ability to captivate and embrace. One senses a belonging even if alone. You fit in as nowhere else, or you can walk observing anonymously. Frank Sinatra's song, New York, New York, set the tone for decades. With these words, "If you can make it there, you can make it anywhere. They inspired generations, embodying New York as a reminder that overcoming challenges and competition leads to personal triumph. It's empowering. What other city could offer more? So here we are in 2025 to make a decision, regardless of one's party, of New York City State. Why is that so important? This outcome affects every city in the United States. If Mondavi wins, it will fuel an anti-American movement towards communism, our freedoms, our way of life. If you watch the debate, the contrasts were vast. Mondavi, all smiles and an empty vessel, no substance, no love for this city or what it represents to millions, only plans to destruction that will take chunks out of the Big Apple and leave only a rotting core to be discarded. Cuomo, a man desperate in ego. We know and see only disgrace. He needs not my energy. His shameful record speaks for itself. In between these two stood Curtis Sliwa, a born New Yorker, a man who saw need and he filled it. He created the Magnificent 13, later named the Guardian Angels, dedicated to combating violence, and just their presence helps civilians feel safe in subways, the streets, and in their daily lives. A hero is born. It's a natural state, much like New York itself. Little known was Curtis is being awarded in 1979 in a trip to the White House after saving several people from a burning building.
Wow.
He also has been victimized, so he is no stranger to what doing the right thing, spreading the truth can cost. In 1992, he was kidnapped and shot by 2 gunmen. He escaped, he survived surgeries, persevered with a deeper commitment to the city's safety. His energy is boundless. He never slows down, focused on his vision. A New Yorker, once again thriving for visitors to feel secure, safe, as Rudy Giuliani did in 1994. The first Republican, Giuliani, in 20 years. They say all things come full circle. Now is the time. It's overdue. Curtis Sliwa, a Republican, has lived his whole life protecting this city. There's no pretense as the others. He is New York. He embodies all that made her great, tailor-made for the difficult task that we all see at hand. Integrity, courage, and the needed passion. Only you, the voters, have the power now to save this city, to make New York safe, and in doing so, returning her to the New York that inspired so many generations prior. Vote Curtis Sliwa. October 21st through November 2nd is early voting, officially Tuesday, November 4th. Start spreading the news. It's up to you, New York. You got my vote.
Yeah, baby. Curtis is.
Wow, that was great. That was great.
Curtis is the guy.
The way Curtis here.
He is.
He's on the line. When we get back, we're gonna go to break. But what about that Alicia Keys song? That's Curtis right there. All right, when we get back, we got him on the line.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show.
And we got Curtis on the line.
Sponsored by Patriot Gold. We have Curtis
Sliwa
on
did you hear Roxana's little thing about you just there?
Oh, that was like music to my ears. I just left the Chinese-American rally in Brooklyn. I'm headed to the great Vicky Palladino.
God
One of
bless
the
you.
greatest city council persons that we have. She has a big Italian festival going on in Whitestone.
Beautiful.
I have my lovely wife, Nancy, here, the animal rescuer. And, boy, we have momentum, Dick and Doug. We have momentum on our side.
Oh,
I think
you're going to win.
I think the debate made people understand it's a three-way race. And you had 2 people who nobody could stand, Mamdani and Cuomo, and you were the alternative. And I think that you're going to gain as a result of that, and I think you have a good shot at pulling this off.
He's winning. I got bets. He's winning. I'm done.
There have been no polls since the debate, and I'm anxiously awaiting them. What do you think's happening, Curtis?
Oh, you could tell tremendous shift. People said, wow, Curtis Sliwa was very mayoral, not only had a grasp of the facts, but had a lot of new concepts and new ideas that wouldn't cost money, and was the only candidate talking about cutting taxes, income tax, property tax, corporate tax, so that we could improve and not move. And then also dealing with the basics of law and order. I think the defining moment of that debate was when I looked at both my opponents, because I was placed right in the middle. And you may have noticed in the first 10 minutes, the moderators were ignoring me as if I was a person of no consequence.
That was horrible.
And I came in and I said, look, here you have the architect and the apprentice of no cash bail.
Yes.
Yep.
Here you have the architect and the apprentice of Raise the Age that was almost responsible for the killing of my son in the streets of New York City. He barely survived, Anthony. And here you have the architect and the apprentice, both who want to close Rikers Island and turn criminals loose in the streets. I'm the only law and order candidate.
Explain that to the voters about where Cuomo is on these issues.
Yeah, Cuomo is the author of No Cash Bail. He signed it into law. In the Democratic primary that he lost to Zoran Mandami after being ahead in February by 40 points. At that point, when I announced and Cuomo announced, the initial polls had Cuomo 40 points up, Zoran Mandami. Nobody knew Zoran. He only had 1% in the polls. By the time of June 24th, when Cuomo acknowledged he had lost decisively the Democratic primary on June 24th, he beat him by 13 percentage
Go
points.
back to the no cash bail. What was Cuomo's role in that?
Well, he created it, he passed it, and then when given an opportunity in this political cycle, he doubled down on it, which generally means that in almost every category of crime that you commit, even the most violent crimes, you will be brought in for your arraignment and immediately released on your own recognizance. You do not get remanded to jail because there's Cuomo's no cash bail. Obviously, Zoran is a proponent of that. Raise the Age, you may have seen in the New York Post today the statistics of a tremendous increase in violent juvenile crime by 16 and 17-year-olds.
Wow.
Because now they will go out, they will do the drive-by shootings, because if they get caught by the NYPD, they go to family court, not criminal court, and naturally turned loose in the streets. And closing Rikers Island. Both have been proponents of closing Rikers Island, which houses 7,000 inmates, and no alternative, just basically release them into the streets. So that's created the crime crisis we're going through. And I revert to the old Rudy Giuliani method, which is we don't lock up just toothpaste in New York, which is the common denomination now.
Right.
We lock up criminals. Let's start locking up the people who actually commit the crimes. A novel idea, Dick and Doug.
Yeah.
Arrest criminals and don't lock up toothpaste and detergent and all the products that you seek to buy when you go into a store.
Yeah.
And also, don't lock
good.
up New Yorkers. Let them be free on the street so that they're not worried about crime and they're not shutting themselves up in their homes with bars on the windows and the doors because of all the people who are being let free from prison.
I believe all the polls that are out, where they say Mandami's going to win. People say that on the phone. Oh, yeah, I'm voting for him. And they hang up the phone. They're not voting for this guy. They're going to come out and vote for you. I just see that happening. I said that about Trump in 2016, and I'm saying that about you now. Forget any polls that are coming out that are saying you're winning. The people aren't going on these polls. And we need you on that wall.
Look, Curtis Sliwa is the only one who is in favor of jail.
Yeah.
Mamdani is against jail. He says going to jail is bad.
Oh, it's not nice.
And Cuomo let illegal immigrants shelter in New York as sanctuary citizens and repealed the requirement of bail in federal cases. So you have two candidates who've been instrumental in increasing crime.
And I saw you on the Rudy podcast. That was fantastic. And the fact that Rudy's endorsing you and he said you really got your stuff together, I love that he said that, because that's the man.
Well, not only Rudy, but remember, following Rudy's election in 1993, George Pataki, a man that nobody knew, beat the better Cuomo, Mario Cuomo, and we had 12 years with Pataki, 8 years with Giuliani, no chaos, no corruption, and a reduction in crime. And that's what we're going to get this year, both Doug and Dick. We are going to elect yours truly mayor, first Republican mayor in a long time, and then next year we'll have the momentum to put in Congresswoman Elise Stefanik to take out Kathy Hochul and return normalcy to New York State so that people do not flee because of crime, because of the chaos and corruption brought to us by the Democrats.
Yep. Yes, absolutely. And you're the guy that's going to do it. You know, you're going to stand up towards these people for us and against the criminals, and you'll stand up to them. You're not going to care what they say to you. You're just going to do it. I know.
Yeah, well, again, I had no better mentor than Rudy Giuliani. I apprenticed. I watched what he did. I saw how he was able to get results. So if people want to know who Zohran Mamdani is, because he's very affable, it's like that song by Sade, Smooth Operator. Yeah. He is the junior varsity Barack Obama, smooth operator. He's Bill de Blasio on steroids. Curtis Lewa is Rudy Giuliani 2.0.
That's what I tell people.
Yep.
Right, Cuomo is one and done. He's tossed in the towel. He had his chance. He failed. He's not even campaigning, guys.
I know.
It has been 10 days. He hasn't been seen on the campaign trail. You can't win a campaign unless you're out with the people, and that's what I'm out with each and every day. So it's really Zohran Mamdani, pro-criminal versus Curtis Lewa, pro-cop, pro-law and order.
I just can't see people voting for him, especially when they got somebody like you. I can't see anyone wanting to go out and have this happen.
I'm just amazed that a guy is running for mayor of New York who essentially says he doesn't believe in prison.
Yeah, and right, and he wants to close
Rikers Island.
Rikers Island.
And let people be free.
And the landlords, he wants to freeze everything. What are they going to do? They're going to move out.
Yeah, well, that's true. But the more immediate thing is that there will be no option of sending people to jail if Mamdani wins.
And then Stefanik as governor be great. You know, this state is going to turn around with you and then Stefanik. It'll be beautiful. Back to where it should be with Giuliani and Pataki. Beautiful. I'm so proud of you, Curtis. You're going to do it. I know you're going to win. We just got to get people out there. The people got to stop saying, "Oh, he's not going to win." No, he's going to win. He's absolutely, because then they're going to come out and vote. You know, you know what I'm saying, Curtis?
Well, as Dick Morris has said many times, and there's nobody who's been more of a Nostradamus when it comes to elections. Mayoral elections have had very poor turnout. Ever since the Rudy Giuliani, David Dinkins race, turnout has precipitously gone down. It's not going to get any better. You know, obviously more attention, more recognition to this race, but we're not going to crack 50%. So it's all about getting your vote out. I know the Zoranistas are out there. I see them because I'm out there going door to door. You gotta do micro targeting. You got to do the text. You got to do the emails. You got to do the mailings. You got to bring people to the polls for early voting. It's good old fashioned retail politics. You get out your vote, you win.
Beautiful.
You don't have to get an incredible turnout of votes to win because generally mayoral campaigns and mayoral elections have been low voter turnout elections.
Not now, Curtis. They're going to come out. We got to break because we can only do 10 minutes per candidate. But they're going to come out and vote for you. I know it.
You go for it, Curtis. And again, my advice here is to focus on one issue, which is that you're running against a guy who doesn't believe in jail.
Right.
Absolutely.
Love you, Curtis. All right, man. Well, hopefully we have you on again before the election.
Thank you, Dick and Doug. You've given me tactical air support. I'll always be grateful for that.
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, Curtis. All right, let's go. Do we have time? Oh, no, we're going to go to break. We got to go to break, and then when we come back, we'll take some calls.
The Dick Morris Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Dick Morris Show.
Entertaining and informative.
On the Red Apple Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dick Morris and Doug DePiro Show, sponsored by the Patriot Gold Group.
I think we're going to go to some calls, but that was pretty good. What do you think?
Let me just do this story first. Something remarkable is happening. The transgender fad that captured elite institutions and destroyed countless young lives is finally losing its grip. Celebrities no longer rush to repeat its dogmas. Universities report steep drops in students claiming irregular gender identities, and even progressives are beginning to see that the cultural fever has broken. In his searing new column, the Federalist assignment editor lays bare what the collapse reveals. She writes that when the social contagion fades, it will leave behind victims who were lied to, sterilized, mutilated in the name of ideology.
And as they were babies, they were lied to.
Laughing at the absurdity of it all isn't enough. A moral society has a duty to hold accountable those people who made people change their gender. The craze is dropping out of popularity. The damage is permanent. Justice is overdue. I hope so. Let's go to Debbie in Westchester.
Hi, Debbie in Westchester.
Hi, guys. How are you?
Good. Where in Westchester are you, Debbie?
Right.
What's that?
Right.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm calling to talk about Curtis' campaign. I echo one of your earlier callers. I listen to AT all the time, and I find it quite frustrating. Everyone, of course, is entitled to their opinion, but at the same time, the hypothetical way that Curtis could win this is he's a real choice, a different choice, I should say. And, he's won the Asian vote before, especially because Mamdani doesn't want to have, the accelerated program in schools. Obviously, with Eric Adams not in the race, he could get the black vote. But everybody has to unite behind Curtis, and there's so much discussion about, well, he should drop out. Instead of Cuomo dropping out. I think if Cuomo dropped out, more people would say anyone but Mamdani, and they could vote for Curtis. And for Cuomo, it's ridiculous. He is that story that Trump tells about the woman and the serpent. He is the serpent. Yeah. Even when he's positioned, people call him and say, well, he knows how to manage, he knows how to run government. Maybe you could say that, but what did he do with that power? And you can look back at his record. But even in January 2020, I seem to recall, before the pandemic hit, the budget that they released for the state of New York, I think it had a $6 billion shortfall.
Right.
So, what has he done with his managerial experience besides bully through a lot of the conditions that have created the problems we have?
I think the majority of the voters in New York are determined not to let Cuomo back in. And that's been translating into Mamdani momentum. But in fact, it could become Sliwa momentum very quickly. Thanks for your call, Debbie.
Thank you, Debbie. He mentioned how Rudy was his mentor. I believe, I'm going to go on a limb saying this, but I believe Rudy was Trump's mentor. I think Trump watched Rudy clean up the city and said, wow, that's a real tough guy. We have to ask him someday. I believe that.
Yeah, there's a lot there. Let's go to Robert in Yonkers.
Hey, Robert in Yonkers.
Good afternoon, guys. And what I want to say is the polls, everyone's talking about the polls, but the polls are designed to influence the way people think about the election.
Yep.
They're not the election.
No, I know.
And we don't know who's being polled. When people came out to vote for Mamdani in the primary, to me, that sounded like the equivalent of a flash mob. And all these people that are being paid to riot, who's to say that they're not being paid to go out and vote?
Yeah.
Either way, I do agree with the flash mob. Not necessarily that they're paid, maybe, but that they just came out. It was like the new guy on the block type of thing.
I think that the other thing is, if Sliwa wins, it
He's
will
going
be an
to
affirmation of New York City. If Mamdani wins, it will be an affirmation of the Islamic terrorist Palestinian nexus.
Right, the mindset that people have.
That's right.
That they
It'll
want
be
to take
used
over.
and interpreted as being the growth of Palestinian power in the United States. The caliphate.
Yeah.
And that's the enthusiasm that is Mamdani's base. It's nothing about New York. It's all about the Middle East. It's all about Israel. It's all about the Palestinians.
Interesting. That is, yep. You know
and
what?
think of the impact of a victory of each candidate. If Cuomo wins, nobody will care. If Mamdani wins, the Palestinians will go crazy.
Right. Sharia law before you know
all
it.
over the place. Sharia law, everything. And if Sliwa wins, we actually have a chance at real governance in New York.
And
real
cleaning
change.
up the city.
Yeah.
He's
right.
going to clean up the city like Rudy.
It's
And
good.
you know, he's going to be there. He'll be talking to Rudy too. If he becomes mayor.
Let's go to Eduardo in Florida.
Hey, Eduardo.
Yeah, Mr. Morris and Doug, good afternoon. It's been a while. But I wanted to thank you and Stephen Moore and President Trump. The rehearsals, the practice runs over there in the Caribbean are looking good. I saw the Night Stalkers on Daily Mail, the amphibious landing and helicopters, all that, the jets. They're looking great. I will say that Navy Admiral Alvin Halsey, I think he's a Biden holdover. He needs to go, and anybody who is Trump deranged, they need to go.
I think it's important for us to understand that I do not believe the United States is going to invade Venezuela. I do not believe that this is more than a show of force. I think it's designed to scare the hell out of Maduro. It's designed to force him from office. And it's designed to go after his number 2 and 3 and 4 and deputy people and get them to abandon him and turn on him. I think that's going to happen. And I think that we need to let Trump do his intimidation because I think that's what's going on. The United States is not going to send troops into Venezuela, believe me. But let's let Trump do his thing, let him intimidate Maduro, and let Maduro quake in his boots for a couple of weeks. It'll be good for him and good for the world. Thanks very much, Eduardo. I appreciate your call.
Thank you, Eduardo. So that was some show we had here, Dick Morris.
It was. I loved having Sliwa on, and I loved having Chiarelli on.
Oh, both were great. And Sliwa's going to win. And I think he's going to have Rudy right by his side to, to talk to and get, some insight. And by the way, it was an honor. And and Roxana, on the Rocks.
He was fabulous. The On the Rocks segment.
The On the Rocks. It was like 8 hours long. I had to cut it down.
Well, bye-bye.
Bye-bye, Rock. In New York. Let's go out with the New York, with the Keys, Alicia Keys.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
No. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
No. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to The Dick Morris Show. You can hear The Dick Morris Show Sundays at noon. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode so you never have to wonder.
What the heck is going on here?
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.